morning, Manitoba female U18 AAA Hockey League fans, into our, I guess it's like a holiday special edition of the MFHL Podcast. It's Season 3, Episode 11. I'm your host, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth. We're brought to you by Elite Prospects, Terrico, Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Movement Fitness and Performance, as well as goaltenders. As for today's episode, excited to get into it. We're going to have two guests joining this edition of the show. And then I'm going to get into kind of like a mid-season review since we are kind of officially at the halfway point of the season now as, well, the last set of games for the 2025 portion of the schedule ended up being played not last Sunday, or I guess the Sunday before this past Sunday, as that was the final games before we went into the break. And yeah, we had a chance to see the Eastman Selects take down the Interlake Lightning, as that was a game we featured on our network. And then, that drubbing that the Winnipeg Ice laid on the Pembina Valley Hawks was quite something to see. On the stat lines, as for the action leading up to the final weekend of play in 2025, though, the fact is that games got canceled due to inclement weather, just due to the roads being unsafe. Hoping everyone's been staying safe during this holiday break, by the way. And going into the break, this is how the standings look, with the Ice and the Select separating themselves from the rest of the pack right now. Westman comfortably in third place, and then it gets pretty interesting from 4 to 6. Pembina Valley also close there, as we can see, too. That tie for fourth place as well. The only team that is really out of it at this point in terms of climbing up the standings looks to be the Interlake Lightning, but the great thing about this league is every team makes it to the dance, so you never know what could happen come playoff time. But one thing that Yellowhead knows for sure, they got a star in the making, I think, on their roster in Haley Chipelski, who is not only a rookie defenseman this year for the Yellowhead Chiefs, but is playing aged advanced. She is a 2011 born player, and last season, against competition in the U15 league, in the MFHL U15 league, she led all players in points. I've talked about her before. In fact, we picked her to win Rookie of the Year, and her case for Rookie of the Year right now is looking pretty strong. She leads all Yellowhead Chiefs players in points right now. She's been very steady on the back end and has been trusted in so many situations for this Chiefs squad. It was great to finally get a chance to talk to Haley Chipelski, as that interview is coming up next on this edition of the MFHL Podcast. Stay tuned. Leading point getter and an aged advanced rookie joining the show, and Haley Chipelski of the Yellowhead Chiefs, number 9. Haley, you're off to a fantastic start in a league you look very comfortable in so far as a 2011 born player. Take me through what it's been like playing with the U18 so far this year, what your experience has been so far.
Been really good, I think. The girls make it feel like home. Uh, yeah.
In terms of that decision to be able to step up to this next level, take me back to, I guess, training camp, the tryout process, what that conversation was like with Coach McGonigal when you found out you had made this team.
Uh, well, I'd known him before, so that helped. But um, but yeah, I don't really know. Um,
No, no worries. I guess
oh,
in terms of to make it more simple, what that conversation was like with him when you had it made the team, do you remember anything from that specifically?
um, he just said he'd be happy to have me. Uh, that's all I really remember.
And no worries. I mean, that's long ago. I mean, we're like 4 months removed from that moment. But I mean, you stood out last year, 77 points in a full regular season with the Yellowhead Chiefs. Your performance was so good that you were noticed by the U18 program and actually ended up playing some games in the playoffs and near the end of the season. What was that like for yourself to get that early experience last year, I guess, to prepare you for this next year, how valuable that was getting to play up with the U18s.
Yeah, that definitely helped. I got to know some of the girls and one of the coaches as well, and it helped see like the how much more body gets played and all that, and the different level of competition.
Oh yeah, and obviously a step up from, like you said, the physicality compared from U18 to U15. And I mean, for you at U15, you excelled over 70 points as mentioned. Is that always been kind of the type of player you are, where you're really responsible in your own end, but you have that huge offensive upside as we saw last year on paper?
Well, I tried to be try to be a team player though. But yeah, I like to get points too, for sure.
Yeah, and that's been no different this year. You're leading the way in points. And like you said, team player first. So obviously your contributions playing a huge part in team success. But I said it on the broadcast last year when we had a chance to cover you in the playoffs in the semifinals against Eastman, that you seemed like you were ahead of your years. Seemed like you looked like an experienced player out there, even though you were the youngest. Where does that confidence come from? Is it just knowing you're as good as you are, or is it something else?
Well, I just try to play my game and uh make good passes. And it also helped playing with my brother. He's a couple years older. Uh I guess that helps playing against him.
Yeah, you got the sibling rivalry going. Take me through. Is it like you guys play like mini sticks or road hockey? What are some of the different things you guys challenge yourselves against each other, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I have two, so we'll play like mini sticks against each other or on a backyard rink, just shinny and stuff like that. And when I was w really younger, I played with him. So I guess played with both of them, I guess, yeah.
Oh, it must have been really cool getting to, you know, play by the side of your brothers. Was that really early on, I assume, right when you were starting out?
Yeah, like pre-novice, U7, U9.
So ways back at this point. But I mean, that was near the start of you playing this game that you love and continue to play to this day. I guess how huge has that influence truly been from your brothers in terms of, I guess, your drive and your passion for the sport?
Yeah, it's been huge. Always wanted to be better than him. So that's always helps me push harder.
Yeah, and speaks to your competitive nature, of course. So you gotta let the viewers in as well as myself. Who usually wins when it's between you three?
Well, I usually beat the younger one, and I'm gonna have to say the older one probably usually would beat me, but I beat him sometimes.
Yeah, it's usually how it goes, if if you got going up against the older sibling, they're usually the one that will get the better of you. But I mean, credit to you for getting a few on them, and I mean, speaks to your skill level. But back to current times with this U18 program, you've been able to make that next jump pretty seemingly. Like we've talked about, your experience last year helped you kind of know what was to come, but actually getting to play at this level, what would you say has been, I guess, the biggest challenge for you to start off this year through your first 17 games or so?
Probably just playing the body as much and tying up in front, try to box people out. Everyone's a lot stronger and bigger, so that's probably it.
What are some of the things you feel you're gonna, I guess, need to work on to improve that? Is it gonna, come from off ice training, or is it just more reps you get at this level you feel will be more beneficial for yourself?
I think a bit of both. Doing more workouts maybe. Having a bit more confidence might help. And yeah, just practicing it at practice too.
And I mean, your coaching staff, it seems like they're very confident in putting you not only out in big time situations, 5-on-5, but you've also been a huge part of the power play as well as this team's penalty kill. What's that experience been like for yourself as the young player you are to be so trusted with this type of responsibility so early on in your U18 career at this level?
Well, it's definitely a bit like scary. I get like nervous at times. But like I said, the girls they're great and they help with that and the coaches too. So yeah, that they really help.
And this year's Yellowhead team, a team that maybe, I guess, a bit younger compared to some teams of the past, but still some good experience. What's that been like being able to bond with this group? Seems like you have a lot of respect, and it seems like there's been a good friendship growing from the sounds of it, from what you've been describing to us with this year's group.
Well, I played with a couple of them last year on the U15 team, and then I've known some of them from I don't know how, but I knew some of them. Uh, yeah, and the friendship's definitely growing big time. Really good team spirit stuff.
Yeah, and even though it's a team that has dropped their last three games before that, a team that was continuing to get better and better as the season has gone along. Going into the break, seeing where this team is at, about tied for fourth place. Seems like the vibes are pretty good around the team. Heading into the holiday season, I'm sure that this team's going to get together in one way or another when they can. But take me through, I guess, what the mindset is, I guess, moving forward for this group as we near closer to playoffs now.
Well, I think we'd like to play a more consistent game. Play all three periods as much as we can, and continue to get lots of shots on net, make clean breakouts, and yeah, play as a team.
And one of the better defensive teams in the league this season, led by, of course, number nine, Haley Chipelski. And Haley, before I let you go, I gotta know, is there a defenseman that you look up to maybe at the pro level, whether that's the NHL or the PWHL, that you maybe model your game after? Or is it, one of those things where you try to be your own player and try to define yourself that way?
I definitely try to be like Cale Makar and Matthew Schaefer. They're my favorite guys to watch, for sure. I think they're just great.
Yeah, I mean, two excellent offensive talents, and better yet, two really great all-around defensemen. And Matthew Schaefer, rookie, could very well be rookie of the year this year, making a huge impact. Same with this rookie in age advanced rookie number nine defenseman Haley Chipelski. Haley, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me. I see you got a beautiful Christmas tree in the back. So I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and looking forward to seeing what yourself and this Yellowhead Chiefs team can do heading forward this season.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Uh, yeah, Merry Christmas too. And the our four coaches or five, they're really helping me. Derek Tibbetts, Craig Geeky, Sam Geeky, and Sydney Murray. They're really teaching me a lot. So yeah. Anyways, thank you and Merry Christmas.
And Haley Chipelski joining this edition of the MFHL Podcast on this New Year's Eve in 2025. By the way, everybody, Happy New Year's Eve. Hoping everyone the best coming up in 2026, which is crazy to say. It feels like it was just 2016 yesterday, honestly, and now it's like a decade ago come tomorrow. I also hope that everyone had a Merry Christmas, by the way. have had a safe holiday and just have had a wonderful time throughout this break. If you've been able to have a break, I know that, well, not my parents, but I know some people ended up going back to work this week. I know that everybody is going to be going back to work next week regardless. But yeah, hoping that everybody has been well and very excited for this upcoming week too coming up, where we're actually going to have a chance to get to watch Haley Chipelski and her Yellowhead Chiefs take on the Winnipeg Ice on Sunday in a game that will be broadcasting. But return to play in the MFHL is going to be coming up on Saturday. This Saturday, we're going to be in Niverville, Manitoba for Eastman and Pembina Valley, which should be a good one. Pembina Valley looking for a huge bounce back after a long break after falling in their most recent matchup 11-1 to the Winnipeg Ice. But one thing about Pembina Valley that has really stood out this season, even though this team is second last right now, like mentioned before, they have a chance still to rise up in the standings and maybe get to that middle of the pack where I'm sure they'd love to be. But one of the standouts on this team this year, I'd say their biggest standout has been their goaltender in not Madison Froese, it's Madison Froese. She finally, well, not finally because it's like really the first time we've ever spoke, but I got clarity on how to say her last name, so not going to be butchering it ever again. But yeah, it's Madison Froese, number one. Joining me on this edition of the MFHL podcast next, where we talk about this season, what it's been like having the role she's had this year, what it's been like getting to play with her goaltending partner in Hannah Bannister, about the Hawk season and much more coming up next on the MFHL podcast. Stick around.
Second year goaltender, number one, Madison Froese, joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. She plays for the Pembina Valley Hawks. She's been sensational every time we've broadcasted their team this season. Madison, we're done the first portion of this year's schedule. Take me through how yourself and the Hawks are feeling going into the break.
Yeah, I think we started off really strong. We came out hard and against the Ice and the Westman in the first bit of the year, and I think we're still doing strong. We always have close games, and I think we're competing good.
Yeah, aside from, of course, yesterday's unfortunate game for the team, it's been a pretty competitive season for this Pembina Valley Hawks team. And when taking a look at the numbers, you've been a huge reason for this team's success, being able to steal wins against teams like the Ice, like you mentioned, against a team like Westman too. Most recently, as we watched on our network against Yellowhead a few weeks ago. Take me through in your second year, playing in more of a starter's role compared to last year, how you've been able to handle the pressure as well as you have.
Yeah, I think confidence is a huge thing, and compared to last year, my confidence has definitely been better, and bringing that into my game and just being confident, especially since I am a smaller goalie, really helps me out.
Just touching on last year, of course, having a chance to play with Cassie Rakowski, and of course, you had a chance to step up and play in some games. She got the net in the playoffs, but take me back to last year, what that was like learning the ropes of the U18 level.
Yeah, I think it's definitely different from U15. The shots are a lot harder and stuff, but I definitely learned a lot, which helped me coming into this year.
And of course, you got a new goalie partner this year in Hannah Bannister. What's that been like getting a chance to compete with her day in and day out?
Yeah, she's super funny and super nice. And it's not really so much competing, it's more motivating for each other. And we still compete for the net, but we both just have a great relationship together and just helping each other out.
Getting a chance to watch you play this season, you're a fighter in that crease. You battle as well as the team in front of you. But I guess take me through your process, what it's like for you to get prepared and to get into that mindset on a given game day.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of superstitions. I drink a good smoothie. I focus on what I'm going to do before the game. And I think, yeah, being a bit smaller, I have to definitely be more confident and challenge a lot more. But I think it really helps me out, and just like focusing in warm-ups and during the game will just bring me to a good game.
You mentioned a smoothie. Is it the same one every time? Is that a part of the superstition, or are you not opposed to changing it up every once in a while?
Yeah, it's the same thing from coffee culture.
What exactly is it? Is it just
It's like
coffee or
called the Power Up, and it's like just has a bunch of fruit and yogurt and juice, and it just really sets me for the game.
sounds good? I mean, anything with fruit in it, I love that. So I mean, a smoothie if it works for you, hey, that's I mean a tasty way to get ready for the game. But you mentioned, of course, being a bit of a smaller goaltender and how. Of course, you got to account for a few, different things like challenging a bit more, essentially trying to play a bit bigger. What have you kind of found, I guess, from this year to, I guess, compared to last year, where you've taken a real step in that aspect of the game in terms of your positioning?
Yeah, I think last year I lacked a bit of confidence, so I wouldn't come out as much. But over the summer I practiced, and this year I definitely challenge more, which makes me seem a lot bigger and takes away a lot of the net, which can help me block more shots and put them to where I want them in the corners.
You speak about confidence, and I'm sure there was a lot of it, with those big wins, like you mentioned early on in the year against the Ice, against the Wildcats, and against the teams that this team has been able to beat. As a group, how has this team been able to, I guess, take each one of those wins and use that for, I guess, motivation and using that to get better?
Yeah, I think knowing we can beat them is a huge thing. Like we also beat Eastman at the very start of the year, and they're top of the league. So I think definitely just like knowing we have and pushing and trying our best every game, we can get the outcome we want.
For this team going to be back in action coming up in the new year at this point, this team's also already had a chance to build some good memories, getting to travel to some different places. Has that also been special too in this second year, being able to bond that way, similar to last year with where this team traveled, good old fashioned hockey trips for the squad this year. What's that experience been like?
Yeah, it's been great. Like rooming with the girls is always fun, and I think it brings the team closer. And doing a lot of team building helps us know that we have been in positions that are similar to hockey, and just making great memories and knowing each other, just like knowing them on the ice is great.
Yeah, and those trips are always so memorable. Always one of the few moments when you look back at it from like 10 years from now where you may remember, those good times. And for this Pembina Valley squad, even though they're seventh place currently, still the middle is pretty close right now, from fourth to the seventh, only separated by 3 points for your team compared to Yellowhead, the Avros, as well as Central Plains. Just from talking to different teams, different coaches in this league, there's a lot of respect for this Pembina Valley team. But knowing this team's lower in the standings, you feel like maybe on a given night, this team can maybe use an underdog mentality and maybe take teams by surprise as the season comes to an end.
Yeah, I definitely think we could do that. Knowing we've done it before and just focusing in the new year will really help us move up in the standings, and just keeping our effort and compete there. I think being the underdogs will surprise everyone.
And I guess one last question for you, but talking about that compete, that effort level with this group that on paper may not have the same type of offensive firepower as the Winnipeg Ice or like the Eastman Selects. But do you feel like those things alone could very well help this team maybe be a bit of a stunner, going up against whatever team they may come to play against come playoff time?
Yeah, I think our forwards are very strong, and our defense really helped me out, and Hannah as well. So I think if we compete hard and try our best, like anything can happen, and it's not all about talent.
Well, you're gonna have to bring that A game, that gritty style of play coming up on January 3rd against the Eastman Selects when it'll be returned to MFHL regular season action and return to play for the Pembina Valley Hawks. Their star-studded netminder, number one Madison Froese, joins this edition of the MFHL podcast. Madison, since this is before Christmas, 3 days before at this point, want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and the Hawks as well, a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
And once again, Merry Christmas, Merry belated Christmas to all, and Happy Holidays. I hope everybody has been celebrating it their way, the right way for yourself, and I hope that Madison Froese, our latest guest, as well as Haley Chipelski and their families have had wonderful Christmases. Want to thank her and Haley for joining the show. Great to get a chance to talk to Madison, where she pointed to her confidence. Even though the most recent contest for this team, they end up giving 5 goals up before Madison gets pulled. That's a very good Winnipeg Ice team. That seems like in that game in particular, they finally cracked the code against Pembina Valley, a team that's played Winnipeg pretty tough this season in the matchups previously. In fact, as mentioned before on this podcast and throughout our coverage this year, and as you may look back, you may notice that Pembina Valley was the first team to beat the Winnipeg Ice in a shootout earlier this season, and Madison Froese was in net. She's been in net for some big-time moments for this team this year, and yeah, we'll get into the Hawks coming up as well as all the rest of the teams, but I'll just say this before we go to commercial break about the Hawks. If they're able to put together a more sound game, put up more quality in front of Madison to help her out when she's in net specifically, I think that, Pembina Valley, it's a team that not necessarily that I think could make a championship run, but could very well give the contenders in this league a run for their money if they come to play. Could be a sneaky team. Just putting that out there right now. But if they put it all together, that's going to be the question, which will be pretty interesting in 2026. Coming up next, we're going to get into showing you just kind of my thoughts, my review, key points for all 8 teams in this league. We'll revisit some predictions that were made earlier in the season in our season preview show, in our special then, when I gave individual award predictions as well as just team-based things, championship predictions and whatnot. Do they still hold up today? All these months later, about 3 months later, well, we'll find out coming up shortly here on the holiday special of the MFHL podcast here in season 3 as we end off 2025 the right way here on your home for MFHL hockey coverage on G-Show Productions.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
And welcome back to the MFHL Podcast. It's Season 3 here in Episode 11, our holiday special, which, not really doing anything with the graphics or anything to make it that way, but reason I say it's a holiday special, it's an MFHL podcast episode coming out during the holiday season, of course, here on New Year's Eve. Crazy, honestly, how this year has flown by. But we're happy you chose G-Show Productions for those who have to tune into your favorite league this season, and for those that have tuned into this podcast continuously. Want to thank you for doing so. Still some content to be covered here in this episode. But before we do that, I just want to let you all in on something I've talked about a few times before, but refer a friend. So it's a pretty sweet deal. If you've tuned into our coverage on Uscreen, you know that, well, games lately have been $5. Might just keep it that way until playoffs, when we'll raise up the price again, since, I mean, it will be playoff time, so a lot more excitement around the league. But refer a friend. It's pretty sweet what you can do, and to be eligible, you just have to sign up on gshow.uscreen.io. And basically, if you refer a friend, you'll get 30 days free on any of our subscription plans, well, mainly the Winnipeg High School Hockey League subscription plans, monthly or yearly, as well as, I guess just monthly, sorry. So on the monthly subscription for MFHL, Winnipeg High School Hockey League, and our all-access packages, this would apply, and, the friend that you end up referring could also use this code down the line too. So if you do refer a friend successfully, you'll get 30 days free, and you get it for each referral you get. So say you somehow make 5 successful referrals, that's 30 days free 5 times. So yeah, pretty sweet. You could essentially be watching content for free for a whole year, and yeah, you help us out by spreading the word, and referring people that you may know, friends, family, whoever else. So yeah, what I'll do moving forward after this episode is published, after we end the live stream, I'll try to remember to put in the referral code, but once again, it is on the screen here, right here, if you want to pause and, I don't know, take a screenshot or somehow copy that. But just wanted to let you all in on that before we move forward into what's coming up next on this edition of the MFHL podcast, which is going to be getting into all 8 teams. As we can see here, this is how we sit after, well, at most, one team has played 19 games. That's Westman. Most teams have played 18 to 17 games. Pembina Valley, the lone team with only 16 games played so far this year. Before we get into that, by the way, I just want to show you the statistics. Ivy Perkin leading the way, a couple of selects there, and Delaney Rigaud and Amy Lee Carrier. Sophie Wozosensky, she's been fantastic for the ice this year. And Brea Kapusta has been a really nice addition to a Winnipeg Avers team that's needed her to be really good, after losing a talent like Rio Pierre up front, and as well as the experience that they lost, even though she is technically a rookie in this league. It's her first year in the MFHL. She is a grade 12 and has had experience playing at a high level in the CSSHL coming in. Addison Tomes, fantastic numbers, 9-0. Her counterpart in Isabelle Labossiere has been really good as well in her sophomore season. The ice goaltending has been really good too. If you're noticing a trend here, just in terms of goals against average, these are the top 3 teams in the standings that have players here in the selects ice, as well as Westman, as Indigo Stone rounds out the top 5. By the way, these were the Week 12 award winners. Congratulations to Claire Fraser on taking home Defense of the Week. For Forward of the Week, it was Sophie Wozosensky, and then Bailey Schwartz taking home Goalie of the Week. Excited to see what Week 13 will bring. But into our 2025 review so far, it's going to be of each team, similar to what we did in our season preview. So, for the Interlake Lightning, another tough start to a season. This is a team that, since I've became aware of the MFHL, I guess I started covering this league a bit back in 2020 is when I started, outside of this company. But we've been part of covering this league since 2023 is G-Show Productions, and then they had their strongest team in franchise history. They finished sixth place. They got to double-digit wins, and they had some strong pieces. In fact, back then, a few years ago, the Rigos played on the Interlake Lightning. If you could remember that, for those who do, but yeah, since then, like, the loss of talent, and usually the talent pool in Interlake, it's not as strong compared to most other regions here, but yeah, in the province of Manitoba. But yeah, offensive woes, it's plagued this team, and defensively too. Like, the numbers, they're getting outscored about 5-1 on average per game right now. They've given up 93 goals against. They've only scored 22 goals for. And yeah, you just take a look at the high-end talent that teams have. Sure, this team has some solid players in Carolyn Nolgren, Lily McGregor, their captain, and Alice Pearson. All really solid players, but it's just, compared to the other teams, it just seems like the top-end talent around them is lacking, unfortunately. That's just the reality of the situation. But you got to give the Lightning credit each and every season, no matter what their record is, no matter what the state of the team is. They always keep their spirits up, and they're always going to push you. They're always going to compete until the very end in games, and I think that one of the bright spots on their team is their goaltending. Even though they've given up 93 goals against, I think that's just due to teams spending a lot of time in their zone. But I think that you ride on hope still. This is a team that has stayed positive through it all. And I think a team that, who knows, maybe if a team takes them lately, a couple games, or even more than that, heading into 2026, maybe this team can put together a few more wins, build up even more confidence heading into what will be a tough first round regardless, as they probably draw either the selects or the ice at this point. But ride on hope. I think that's what you can count on, and know that you're a hard-working team, a team that plays with a lot of grit, and a team that may be taken lightly by others, and you could use that to your advantage. But for Interlake right now, in terms of where I feel like they've finished, they're on track right now to finish 8th place. Just in terms of the standings, the points discrepancy there, they're 10 points behind Pembina Valley. And in my opinion, like I said, Pembina Valley, I think that, there could be more to give in this roster. It was a tough ending for them in 2025 as the squad fell 11-1, of course, to the Winnipeg Ice. But like mentioned, this is a team that ended up giving the Winnipeg Ice their first loss of the season all the way back in October, on Thanksgiving weekend, and it's a team that's also beaten teams like the Westman Wildcats, the Central Plains Capitals. They've beat them twice this season so far, and have lost twice to them as well, but they've competed against some of the really good teams in this league. They've been able to go out and beat a team like Yellowhead that's improved as this season has gone along. But overall, a tough ending to 2025 with, the loss that they had against the Ice 11-1. There were a few games that they couldn't play due to cancellations. And in fact, the Interlake Lightning actually gave them quite a good test back on the 13th in December, so this month, when Pembina Valley won in a higher scoring game 7-5. But yeah, that blowout loss had to hurt for sure. I think it should give them motivation to come into their upcoming game a few days from now on Saturday against the Eastman Selects. I think that this group, you'd have to think, should be ready to go, but who knows, coming out of a break, how your team is really going to look, right? I think, though, even though this team, looking at last year's roster, like, they lost a lot of talent on the offensive side of things. They lost a lot of experience, too, but they're not lacking that in net right now, with one goalie in particular, and that's Madison Froese, a guest on today's podcast. And I think she truly is an X factor for this team. Her save percentage is just below .900 right now at 896, but she's faced the second most shots in the league, and she's stolen games against some of the best teams in the league. The wins against the Ice, the Wildcats, the Yellowhead Chiefs, where she faced over 40 shots in all of those games. She was able to come away with the victories, and her team was able to be opportunistic enough in front of her to get the job done. But I think it's time to step up in front of her. And I think they have the capability to do this because when they played Hannah Bannister this season, she's faced in the top 5 of least shots faced in this league this season, and it's not like she's gone up against scrubs like Central Plains and the Winnipeg Avros as much as the Avros have struggled. Those are quality teams, so Pembina Valley has the capability to limit shots. Can they do that more consistently in front of Madison Froese? Because if you can lock into a good defensive style, limit the shots more, I think that that relieves some pressure off of your D zone, and then maybe, just maybe, you can start to get some more offense going. But it's about consistency, I think, for Pembina Valley. Down the line, can you be consistent? That's going to be a real test for this team. I think they're, a bit on the younger side. They do have some decent experience, but I do feel like this team, who knows, they could surprise a team if they put it all together, but they haven't exactly shown it yet this season. And, when Froese isn't in net, can Hannah Bannister step up? I think those are going to be the questions I have heading forward. I think Pembina Valley has a shot to move up in the standings, but right now I'd be comfortable probably placing them at 7th place, just given that I feel like the 3 teams above them, even though we had Pembina Valley finishing about 5th this season, middle of the pack, we were wrong on that so far. The 3 teams, I will admit, in front of them right now in the standings, I think have shown a bit more strength in their play overall compared to PV so far this season. As for the next team to talk about, it's the Yellowhead Chiefs. Up to the middle of the pack in the standings, they're, when taking a look at it, tied with Central Plains and the Winnipeg Avros. And as for this Yellowhead Chiefs team, it's a team that started off slow but has slowly been improving, I think, as the season's gone along. It's a team with a really good defensive identity this year. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. In fact, when you take a look at their goals against, this is a team that ranks tied 4th for least goals given up in the league with the Westman Wildcats. Their goaltenders, when taking a look at Gracie Johnston and Kylie Hack, they've been really good this season and among top 10, I think, or I guess not top 10, but I'd say that they have a case to be one of the best duos in the league this year in the pipes for this team. And this is also a team in Yellowhead that has done a good job of adjusting, as they usually have throughout games as the season has gone along, right? I do think, though, they are hurting a bit offensively, and I think that could be the Achilles heels of this team. As great as Haley Chipelski has been, when you got not only a rookie but an age-advanced rookie on defense leading your team in points, I think that, for success down the line, I'm not sure if that gives you the most confidence as a coach, but yeah, goal scoring overall for this team is down compared to last year. They're averaging 1.88 goals per game compared to last year's 2.89 goals per game. So they're on pace for about 52, 53 goals this year compared to the 81 that they scored in 28 games last year, even though they played 32 games. That was the amount of goals they had leading into their final 4 games of that 32-game schedule. So, yeah, I think they're hurting offensively this season compared to other years, and that could be the downfall of this team come playoff time, just in terms of when you're going up against the Winnipeg Ice or the Eastman Selects, or a team like the Winnipeg Avros even in the playoff series, for example, or let's say the Westman Wildcats. Even though they played Westman pretty good this year, I just feel like those teams have a bit more of a higher offensive ceiling compared to a Yellowhead Chiefs team who has relied more on the defensive side of things to bring them success so far this year. But don't get it twisted. I think that the Chiefs still do have some good talent, some good players up front in Presley Hodgson and the players like Emma Pollock, Jordan Woloski, Nicole Rose-Dable. We've seen her do some great things this year, but I just feel like we, compared to the rest of the league, the top end players on other teams, I feel like those players, given that the talent that Yellowhead lost this year, they've been asked to step up into bigger roles, and maybe they were more of role players on their lines before. I'm not necessarily calling them role players, but so far the goal scoring just hasn't been there. They need to find someone to step up, or this team could very well make it to the Final Four, but it might be a short trip in the semifinals when that time does come. If they do end up making it through, for the Avs, they're certainly hoping that they will. But results-wise so far, it's been a very disappointing start to this season. This is a team that finished second place last year in the MFHL, and at one point through this part of the season, was also in a battle to get first place, and were even first place, I think, at this time, if my memory serves me correctly. But you look at last year's roster compared to this one, still some good experience, but they lost quite a bit of experience from last year's roster to this one. When you talk about players they lost, like Evie West, Liberty Amy, another player I think about that was big time for this team. Players like in Ella Speedley, and then there's just several others, and then of course the loss of Rio Pierre. That's definitely always a tough one when you lose a record breaker, given the development that she had and the growth and the path that she was on. I wouldn't have been surprised if she had beat her own record this season, when looking at the numbers she put up last year. But even despite the losses that this team had on paper, they still had some pretty good returning talent out of the bunch of players that they could have brought back, starting with, Adriana Almeida in net, Callie Lavallee coming back, which she's tied for the top of the team's goal scoring lead right now. Adeline Nolgren, who gets the team captain this season, and then players like Kelsey Dinez, Leah Clausen coming back. So, you take a look at this team and the players that they had coming back, it's not like this team was going to have a lack of talent. They added some really good players onto this roster, like Abrea Kapusta, who leads the team in points right now and is tied with Callie Lavallee for the lead in goals. But are they underachieving? I'd say that they are right now, given that the talent they have, the roster they have. I'd say that even in goal, on paper, the rookie and Anya Cohen-Howen is proven to be maybe an even better complement to Almeida this season than Sylvester was last year, right? Which I think you got to have a lot of hope in that regard if you're Ashley Van Aglen. But, Almeida, her numbers have been really solid. The wins just haven't been there so far for this team. And you take a look at their results, a lot of their losses have been, 1-goal, 2-goal games. They haven't exactly been able to close it out. And I feel like maybe that's where, the lack of experience may come into play. This team having a really talented roster, but maybe not as talented as last year's. And then you get into just that every season is a new season, right? And other teams in this league could get better year in and year out. We've seen it so far this year with Central Plains, who is rised up to their highest placement, since before COVID-19 hit, which that's like 5 years ago now at this point, right? And then Westman going from 7th to the 3rd place so far this year. So all those factors playing into it, I think that, the Avros, even though they've had some things going against them, I still do think with the talent that they do have, that this team is underachieving, and I do expect them to put together more as this season goes along. They have all the pieces to put together. They have a superstar goaltender in net in Adriana Almeida. Brea Kapusta has been really good up front. They have, some really good forwards around Kapusta, like mentioned, Cali Lavalley. I think Adeline Nolgren only scoring 1 goal. That so far that's going to change. And then they have some players defensively that can turn up the offense too, right, at certain points. And we've seen that so far this season when just taking a look at, Leah Clausen, Robin Clausen, Jenna Turner, who has been out with injury. They all have potential, I think, to put it together. And I think maybe that, too, so far is maybe been a bit of a concern, was just the results for Ashley Van Akelen's defensemen, who, usually like to get involved offensively. The numbers have been down there overall so far this year. So, just taking a look at the stats, I guess that contradicts a bit of what I just said. But I do think that, players they have on the roster, the players that I mentioned, like I, point to in this last point, do have the chance to put things together more so and, get some more offensive output as this season goes along. But as for the Central Plains Capitals, they're having their best season in years. This is a team that, last season ends up finishing 9th place. The season before, they finished 8th place. They were ousted in last year's play-in, swept in the first round by the Winnipeg Ice. The season before last year's, and yeah, this year, it's a team that I think when taking a look at, how this group had a bit more experience heading into this year, it was a very young team last year compared to this year. I think when taking a look at that factor and just the skill that Central Plains has, because their U15 program has been pretty strong throughout these past few years, noticeably. And it's great to see that talent is coming through now at this U18 level. I think last year was a year for this group to mature a bit, and I think that's been proven at points throughout this season that they have. They're 8-9, they're tied for 4th place right now, and this is a team that not only is taking care of business against, the teams like the Interlake Lightning this year. They've been able to split the season series so far against the Pembina Valley Hawks, but they've also gone out and gotten some big wins against teams like the Yellowhead Chiefs. Also being able to go out and compete with some of the top end teams in the league and keep things close against a team like the Westman Wildcats. I look back to the second game of the season. This team held them to, 0 goals through the first 2 periods of action, and then, Westman runs away with it. Even in their last matchup against them, they lose 4-1, but the matchup before that, they're able to win 4-3 in a resilient matchup where they take it an extra time. So I think that it's been a huge growth year for this team. Like I said, having their best season in years. This team has some good depth up front, led by Taylor Taryn as well as Kaylin Linz. You look at, their top 5 goal scorers. The least that a player has scored is faithful goal in that top 5, and that's at 7. So it's not like there's a huge drop-off from the top 2 to, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, because Jocelyn Cameron and Ava Mirlees, who have the 3rd and 4th most amount of goals on this team is what I was trying to say. They're at 8. So this team has some good scoring by committee. There's only been one player this season that hasn't scored, and that's been defenseman Mackenzie Schnell. And then you take a look at this team's goaltending. We showed her Bailey Schwartz. She just won goaltender of the week for week 13. Olivia May, coming in with, high expectations, and I think she's come through big time with a .915 save percentage and a 4-3 record. This team has all the pieces, I think, like a team like Winnipeg Avros does, to put it together. It's just, can they? Because even though they're having their best season in years, it's a huge growth here, and I think that they're only going to get better from here. it hasn't exactly been the most consistent year for the Central Plains Capitals team. For example, they open up the season with a win and then a loss, and then a win, a loss, a win. 3 losses in a row, 2 wins in a row, 2 losses in a row, a win, loss, win, loss, win. So I think if they're able to find more consistency, put together bigger stretches of winning streaks, this is a team where we look at them now, 4th place team, they could solidify their placement in that top 4 if they're able to get more consistent, because I don't believe that the Avros are going to continue to struggle. You even look at their numbers, they're stronger compared to the 2 teams they're tied with. So Central Plains, if I'm Matt Zubik and this coaching staff, my message is probably you got to be really proud of how far you've come so far this year, but now it's time to get to that next level. Do we have it in us to do that? Let's find out. Let's challenge ourselves. Can't wait to see what Central Plains has in store to be able to show us that maybe they can punch it into that next gear. As for the Westman Wildcats, as this season has gone along, they've, I'd say that maybe they haven't exactly found that next level gear, but they're definitely on track. This is a very versatile team, a team that, of course, is led by Ivy Perkin, top point getter in the league. She's been fantastic again this year. And yeah, most likely, I'd say we're going to finish with the most points and probably the most assists in the league this season. But, it's a team that, watching them this season, they can do so many different things with their speed. They can play you tightly in a close defensive game. They can get into a track meet with you and trade chances off of the rush. They've gotten solid goaltending this season from Indigo Stone, as well as Shannon Hees at points. But the bottom line for the Westman Wildcats is they will need more from their offensive depth if they want any chance to, I think, make a playoff run, a deep playoff run at that. I think this team has a very good chance to be a Final Four team, but teams are going to be game planning hard for Ivy Perkin. She plays on the line this season, with some stellar players, most notably one in particular in Ivy Fry, who's second on this team with 8 goals. But then outside of that, there's a drop-off to 3 goals, where Lucy Walter would be third on the team in goal scoring, and yeah, she's at that 3-goal mark. So, I think the bright side for this team, Peyton Smith ends up being third in goals with 4 on this team. And then Lucy Walter and Chloe Astle are tied for 4th with 3 goals a pop. But I think what's got to be inspiring for this team, and got to be something that is the right side, is that every single player except for 3 on this team has been able to get on the score sheet, and only one of those players out of the 3 that hasn't scored is a forward in Quinn Tuerdick. And yeah, for the players that have scored goals, it's just something to build off of. Just going to take a quick break here for a moment, and then, just something just came up on my screen. It's a bit of alarming, a bit of a system issue here. So, we're going to throw it to a commercial break, and then I'll be back to continue on with my point about the Westman Wildcats here on this edition of the MFHL Podcast.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Alright, welcome back to this edition of the MFHL Podcast. It's been nothing but technical difficulties this year, but glad to say it's sorted out. Where were we? Yes, the Westman Wildcats. So, a team that's on track this season. It's a team that we had finishing second heading into the year, and that was based off of just, Ivy Perkin, the core that they already have, being a year older, and then, of course, the additions of, some brand players to this team, too. They also had some really good coaches in place, and, of course, still do have these coaches in place, and Carissa Kirkup and her staff, and she's had herself a heck of her season coaching Team Manitoba at the U18 Women's Nationals, and, this team finished 7th place last season, now find themselves sitting alone in 3rd place, and it's a team that has a chance, I think, to get even better as this year goes along. They're on track. It's a versatile team, like I talked about, a team that is very fast, can do a lot of things with their speed. They have a really strong forecheck, too, and their top 4 defensemen really strong at defending when we're talking about players like Ava Schneider, Cassia Baranek, even looking at players like Addison Hanwood, Cadence Mann, Charlie Shearer, who has had some injury issues, a minor one. She's only missed about 3 games, but yeah, she's a player, I guess. Sorry, she's a forward, but we've seen her play defense before. I guess the thing is on this team, there's many different players that can play different positions. Like, we've seen Callie Franklin play on the forward end of things and also being able to fill in defensively so far this year. So I like that aspect of this team. I also like the fact that this team is led by, I think, the best player in this league, and Ivy Perkin, who has run away with the points lead right now, is 10 up on Delaney Rigo, her line mate, and Ivy Fry, who, she's played defense this season. She is a defenseman, but she's jumped up beautifully into a top-line position and has the second most goals on the team this year, and as well as the second most points. And then they're very solid in net. Shannon Hees has been a great backup to Indigo Stone. Indigo Stone, a top 5 goaltender in terms of goals against average and top 5 in many stats this season in the MFHL. So they got a lot of good pieces, but the question remains is, can the scoring depth come through at a high level come playoff time? I think that this team will need more from their depth offensively if they are looking to compete for a championship. Because, look, Ivy Perkin, she's fantastic. She has 14 goals this season, but then after that, Ivy Fry has 8, and then the drop-off after that is 4. Now, the great thing about the situation for this team is that they've had many of their players score so far this year. There's only been one forward that hasn't scored a goal, and that's been Quinn Tuerdick. But she's proven she can play a good two-way game. So I think the blueprint for this team is to continue to trust the process, continue to build your confidence, and you got to hope if the goal is a championship that your offense will come through. But, talking to Carissa Kirkup and just taking a look at the age of this team, all things considered, it is still a pretty young Westman Wildcats team. They're only going to be graduating out 3 players out of their forward and defensive groups. And then goaltending-wise, like Indigo Stone and Shannon Hees are both set to come back next season. So, hey, if this team's able to put together some sort of playoff run and they're able to see more improvements in their scoring. Not only will this be huge for, I think, their growth heading into next season, but it could benefit them very nicely in present times because, look, even though they haven't been able to take down the Winnipeg Ice this season or the Eastman Selects, they've proven that they can compete with both of those teams and keep games close and hang with them. And hey, it's about peaking at the right time. Does this Westman Wildcats team have what it takes? A younger group compared to the top two, which should be exciting to see. I think that maybe third or second place, the prediction was maybe a bit overzealous from myself, but yeah, really big fan of this group and really excited to see where they're going to be taking things coming up in 2025. But as for the defending champs in the Eastman Selects, yeah, I'd say they're still the favorites. You know, this team gave up 33 goals against last season in 32 games, which is just incredible. I've honestly never seen a statistic like that in my time covering this league. Well, this year they're on track to maybe achieving that same sort of number again, but they're on track for way more offense and are the top offensive team in the league right now. They played the same amount of games, of course, as the Winnipeg Ice at 18. The Winnipeg Ice are at 64 goals for, while the Eastman Selects are at 83 goals for. They've given up 19 goals against for a 64 goals against differential. It's a team that's won 8 straight games. Finally, we're able to beat the Winnipeg Ice in this stretch, as the only 2 losses they've had this season are to the Winnipeg Ice. And yeah, it just seems like this season, this Eastman Selects team that also has battled some injuries, but have seen a great next girl up mentality, and their APs have stepped up big time and have contributed big time. But yeah, you know, this team going through that type of adversity, and then once they've been able to be together fully healthy, it just seems like this team is unstoppable when they're at the top of their game. And you know, it seems like the only team that has been able to match up with them consistently at a high level in their matchups have been the Winnipeg Ice. And if you talk to Trevor Hildebrand, the head coach of the Eastman Selects, he'd say that when against the Winnipeg Ice, they didn't necessarily deserve to win that game. But it's just a testament to this overall team. Like, if you're able to get by their defense, you've got to go through Addison Tomes or Isabelle Labossiere, who have faced, you know, the least amount of shots in the league. Addison Tomes has at least. I think Labossiere's faced like the 4th least amount of shots per game. So, yeah, moral of the story is this team is still ridiculously good defensively, but they're also really good offensively, and I think they've fine-tuned that area of their game. Like, you look at their depth, Delaney Rigaud returning, she's leading the way and also leads the league in goals right now. But then you look at the contributions from their rookies in Emily Carrier, as well as, I guess there's not many rookies on this team this season, since this team, it was one of the most experienced teams heading into this season in the MFHL. But they just have so many levels to beat you, whether that's with their forward scoring goals. Their defense can also step up into the play and contribute offensively, as we've seen this year from players like Chloe Carrier with 7 goals, Joelle Normando with 5 goals on the back end, Veda Rigo, who's played 14 games, 3 goals, and then it's just they got so much depth throughout that decor in this forward group that it's like, how do you even game plan for it? How do you compete with that consistently? Because not only do they have that insane amount of talent, but like they're gonna outwork you too, and they're gonna keep coming at you, and they're going to keep applying the pressure. And they're just a relentless team who, in my opinion, Eastman, not only do they have their sights set on another championship, but I think when you take a look at last year's West Regional Series, they are up 1-0 and let that series slip away in that best of three against the Saskatoon Stars. I think that coming into this year, they're motivated to get back, much like the Winnipeg Ice were that group 2 years ago. And I think for Eastman, to be honest, I think when teams are at their best, the only team that can compete with them, as we've seen so far, and that's kind of something I thought heading into the season too, are the Winnipeg Ice, just because of how strong of a skating team they are, how they can move the puck. I'd like to say I think that the Westman Wildcats could maybe challenge them too, maybe the Winnipeg Avros, but I just feel like the amount of depth that this Eastman Selects team has, paired with the best goaltending tandem in the league, and in my opinion, the best goaltender this year in the league, in Addison Tomes, they're pretty tough to beat, pretty darn tough, and for me, still the favorites heading into the 2026 portion of the schedule. But the only team that I think has a legitimate chance to take them down are the Winnipeg Ice, who are championship contenders again. 16-1-1, they're second in both major goal-scoring categories. This is also a team this season in the Winnipeg Ice that has way more experience compared to last year, as they only lost 3 players from last year's team heading into this year. But much like the Eastman Selects, this team is very deep. It's a team that is seeing second-year players like Sophie Wazasensi take that next jump. Gabby Robbins, the points might not be there, but she's been such a strong forechecker for this team this season, has done all the little things right. And then you take a look at their more experienced players that have been here for a few years, in Cassie Carvalho, Aaliyah Texiera, defensively, who has put up 12 points for Carvalho. She's second on the team with 19 points, 11 goals in 17 games played. You take a look at players like Claire Hudson, too, who lead all defense on this team in scoring with 4 goals, 13 assists for 17 points in 18 games played, which that's pretty impressive to see that she's almost at a point per game as a defenseman. But that and much more from their depth is made them championship contenders again. And I think that Cassie Carvalho, when talking with her a few episodes ago, from what I remember, kind of summed something up perfectly, which was that this team this year has a lot more experience, and that's beneficial for them. But then they got great backbone. Gina Plett was a rookie last season, returns to the team this year, and has been really darn impressive. Not only has she been, the best goaltender on one of the best teams in the league, but she's also tied for the most wins in the league right now with Addison Tomes at 9, and she's only dropped one of her contests. And then you take a look at Isla Matthews, who's a rookie goaltender. She's only lost the one game this season, right? Which ended up being an overtime to the Pembina Valley Hawks, or I guess in that shootout all the way back in October. So it's a team with great depth in front, wealthy in the depth department, and they got one of the best goaltending tandems in this league. And it's a Winnipeg Ice team that I think matches up really well with the Eastman Selects because of all of those things. Because if you're going to take down a team as strong as the Eastman Selects, or at least give yourself the best chance to do so, you need to be able to, I think, be able to have a fast team. Be able to have a team where, your defense may not be as great as theirs. You may have more breakdowns, so you're going to need that high-level goaltending to come through. And The Winnipeg Ice have all of that, and defensively, this is one of the best teams in the league as well. Maybe not at the level of the Eastman Selects, but this is a Winnipeg Ice team that's going to play with a lot of pace. Similar to the Eastman Selects, a team that's going to come at you with a hard forecheck, a team that really likes to move the puck around and can get their cycle game going at a high level. If this Winnipeg Ice team can get good goaltending, if Gina Plett or Isla Matthews, which pretty sure in a playoff series, Eugene Kaminsky probably goes with a bit more experience than Gina Plett. But if one of those goaltenders are able to step up in the Final Four championship round, and this Winnipeg Ice team is able to play their game, it's a team that isn't afraid to play a bit physical. It's a team that plays aggressive, like I said, that has plenty of depth. If their goaltending can come through, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Winnipeg Ice becoming champions again in this league for what would be the third time in 4 seasons. But we're going to have to wait and see in terms of where I'd place each team, I guess, in the standings. If I had to guess what the final standings would be, I'm going to say that the Eastman Selects probably will finish first. I think that they've, I know that Trevor Hildebrand said that they got outplayed against the Winnipeg Ice, but maybe after getting that win, they got the monkey off their back against Winnipeg, and they can start to open things up more against them as that season series goes along. I think, though, those are going to be the top 2 teams. I think that Eastman has a bit of an edge right now to finish first place just based off of their makeup. I'll go with Winnipeg, the Ice, in second place. Westman, I think, is on track very well to finish third. I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Avros finishing in fourth place. You know what? Let's go with the Central Plains Capitals to finish fifth place. I like their offense a bit more compared to Yellowhead. I think Yellowhead, for me, is a safe bet to finish sixth. Maybe they move up a bit higher in the standings based off how strong their goaltending and defensive play is. And then, Pembina Valley, I'd say, finishes seventh. And then for the Interlake Lightning, I'd say that that team will finish eighth this season. So, that's really all for the 2025 recaps for just the teams, just reviewing all 8 of them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you feel that I got right in the analysis, what you'd agree with, what you disagreed with, where do you place the teams in the standings as we get closer and closer to playoff time here in the MFHL, as playoffs are going to be starting up in, I believe, February, which that's about 2 months away at this point. Not even 2 months away, really, since this is New Year's Eve. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are on this Wednesday, final day of the year, we're going to hit you with a promo screen quickly, and then I'll be back for just some final things to go over in this episode in terms of just looking back at predictions we made heading into the season, or that I made heading into the season. And then we'll send you off with some final words on this edition of the MFHL Podcast. Welcome back to the MFHL Podcast. Took you through all 8 teams, my thoughts on them, what I feel like they'll need to achieve to get the most out of their groups to be in contention for a championship. Also gave my thoughts on where I feel like these teams are going to place in the standings once the season comes to an end. But one thing I want to do now is take a look back at some individual and team predictions that I made. This was all the way back in September. And we'll start off with it to see how well these have aged. Say MVP and Rookie of the Year on track right now. Haley, Chipelski, I think obviously Emily Carrier is third in the league in points right now. Brea Capusta is a first-year player. Um, is a grade 12. I'm not sure if that is going to change anything in the voting. I'm sure it could have a factor. But yeah, you know what? This is really a segment to see if I'll change awards or my picks on awards, or to see if I stay the same. I think I'd stay the same for Rookie of the Year with Haley Chipelski. Like, you look at Yellowhead, their situation, the lack of offense, the fact that she's an age advanced rookie, putting up the type of numbers she is, 2 points below a point per game, and the fact that Yellowhead has gotten better as this season has gone along. They trust her in so many situations. They play her a lot of minutes at even strength. They play her on the power play. They trust her on the penalty kill. And I think for that reason, I feel like she's going to be very deserving of Rookie of the Year just because of how valuable she is to her team's success. Now, Carey is valuable to Eastman's success, but they got a lot of depth around their players, even though she is one of their top players. And then you take a look at Brea Capusta, right? Like, she's been very impactful, and she's put up a lot of offense, leads the Winnipeg Avros in that regard. But, you know, I think what Haley Chipelski's been doing is equally as impressive as those two, if not even more impressive, just given the situation of Yellowhead this year and how she's been able to carry this team in some games, with her high-end offensive ability while still being really responsible in her own end. As for MVP, Ivy Perkin, Westman is third place in the league. She leads this team in points by quite a bit. She's their leading goal scorer by 6 goals, and she leads the league in points as well as assists, also second in goals. And just outside of the points, when you watch Ivy Perkin play, there's so much emphasis on trying to shut her down, and some teams have succeeded on slowing her down, but you can never truly lock her up, and she's got just such an elite ability to draw players in, make her teammates better by locating, them with high efficient passes. She's a creative player, and that's all been on display this year, and she's had herself a special season so far. For me, she's the MVP. Still at this point, I wouldn't change it even looking back at my predictions in September. As for best defense, I think that Veda Rigo is still in line for this award, potentially. I think that, there's a lot of good defensemen in this league, however. I mentioned one of them in Claire Hudson, for example, right, that is not only stepped up big time offensively, but she's really sound in her own end. Chloe Carey, another player that has put up a high amount of offense, leads all selects defensemen in points right now with 17 and 18 games played. Obviously there's Haley Chipelski, who's 13th in points. Would be crazy if she won Rookie of the Year as well as Best Defenseman. But yeah, there's so many grade D in this league. I'm not even mentioning the bulk of them. But I think for Veda Rigo, I'll stick with her in this award, just in terms of, I think when looking at Veda's numbers, she's only played 14 games. She has 12 points, so she's only under 2 points per game as a defenseman. And Veda is not only so impactful in the offensive end of the ice, but so responsible in her own end, and is also the leader, the captain of, the best defensive team in the league. Like, she is, at the end of the day, the leader of that D-core. She'll most likely play the most minutes in a game, so I think it's going to be a close race this year, but I will give the edge to Veda. I think the only thing that might have slowed her down in winning this award is perhaps, the injury, missing some time. That might give more advantage to other players. And I don't know, maybe some voter fatigue just given that she won it last year, and there's some defensemen in this league that are really deserving, really having some strong seasons when you take a look at, like I said, Chloe Carrier, Claire Hudson, Haley Chipelski. You could even look at Delacqui, Texiera, anyone from that Winnipeg Ice decor. So much talent on the defensive side of the puck in this league, and it's going to be interesting to see who ends up winning that award. As for best goalie, went with Anna Almeida, gave her respect heading into this season. And as for Anna, Adriana Almeida, that is, she still put up really good numbers this season. Like, she's at a .937 save percentage. She just doesn't have the wins to show for it right now. No shutouts as well. I do expect her record to get better as the season goes along, but this is where I'm going to change up my pick. I do think that goaltender of the year, and I think she would have gotten it last year based off her numbers, the type of season she was having up until she got injured. I think that this season, we're going to see a different outcome this time, and it's going to be this goaltender who ends up getting it instead of her teammate in Isabelle Labossiere, and I think that's going to be Addison Tomes. I think when you take a look at Addison, a 9-0 record, 4 shutouts, which the only player who has as much as her is her counterpart in Isabelle Labossiere. But yeah, I just look at it. Addison has the best save percentage in the league. Yes, she's faced the least shots. Out of any goaltender in the league, she plays behind and backstops. Well, I'd say the best decor in the league on paper. Doesn't give up a lot of shots. But the thing that I think people don't understand is in the games where she isn't facing a lot of shots, Addison is coming up with big time save after big time save to bail out her team. And then another situation I look at is that game against the Westman Wildcats, where it was a 6-5 win, a shootout for the Selects. They have a scare. Labossiere isn't having her best day. Tome steps in and weathers the storm, makes some big saves as that game went along, and I believe only gave up 1 goal. So yeah, just the quality of play in Tomes' game this season, the numbers she has to back it up. For me, she's the clear pick right now for goalie of the year for myself. I think others in the conversation at this point are players like Gina Plett. She's had herself one heck of a season. Maybe Indigo Stone or Kylie Hack. Almeida, I think, could play herself back into the conversation if she has a really strong back end of the season. But again, that depends on a few factors. I think right now, got to go with Addison Tomes as goalie of the year. For the team predictions, I have the Westman Wildcats as the most improved team heading into the year. That's been tracking right now, but got to give respect to the Central Plains Capitals, who, of course, tied for 4th place right now. They were 9th place last season, last place the year before, so got to give them respect. But yeah, I think at the end of the year, I think just for Westman, I think they most likely do finish as the most improved team just based on their record. I expect it to get better. It's a bit better right now compared to the Central Plains Capitals. So yeah, I'd still stick with Westman as that most improved team. And then as for the championship series, I still think it tracks that it will be the Winnipeg Ice taking on the Eastman Selects. I could be wrong. I'd love to see all other 6 teams, one of them being able to do so, because that's what keeps sports very entertaining. But yeah, I do think that this is tracking. It's the best 2 teams in the league. And you take a look back at the standings right now, it's been indicative in the numbers for this group, or for these groups. 2 teams that can play a disciplined brand of hockey, 2 teams that can play a great defensive brand of hockey as well. That's literally Eastman's identity. But outside of that, these are 2 teams that are very fast and 2 teams that will pressure you nonstop as the game goes along. 2 teams that, in my opinion, not only have the most experienced rosters in the league, but the most talented rosters in terms of an entire body of work here in the MFHL. And as for who I think would take home the championship if these two teams played, I think this one would have the chance to go the distance, but I do still lean towards Eastman taking home the championship. Just for a few factors, I think that Eastman, just overall, when you look at their quality of roster, I think that it's the most well-built roster in the league, just taking into account that we've seen their offense jump up in the numbers so far this year. We've seen the defense stay at a high level too. This is a team that didn't lose many players at all, like 4 players, very similar to the Ice, who only lost 3. But I think what gives this team a huge advantage is not only their defensive side of things, but just I feel like the offense has been at such a high level this season, and it is a bit different when these two teams match up, right? Maybe they're going to play each other extremely tight, but I just feel like the quality of the roster that the Eastman selects have, paired with their goaltending, the experience that this group had from last year's playoff run, the disappointment that the returning players still feel from not being able to get it done in West Regionals, I think that's all going to fuel the Eastman selects. And, they already had their scare last year in the finals, not being able to close out right away against the Winnipeg Avros. I think that this season, if they were to get into a situation, I think that they're going to have such a business-like mentality, and I feel like they won't waver. And I think that overall they will close out successfully once again this year to become champions. But there still is a lot of time left in the regular season, all things considered. There's about 10 games left for most teams in the league, maybe a bit less than that. If you're the Westman Wildcats, already at 19. All teams play 28 games, and all teams make playoffs. I'm very excited to see how it all plays out, to see if my predictions end up being right. As for our return to play, it's going to be Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, there's going to be a doubleheader, 3 games on Saturday. G-Show Productions is going to have Eastman versus Pembina Valley broadcasted for you on Saturday, and then Ice and Chiefs broadcasted on Sunday in the MFHL. This has been a blast today, getting to talk MFHL hockey for about, over an hour solo. There's a lot to get into today. I thank you for tuning in if you did. Also want to thank Haley Chipelski and Madison Froese once again for being the guest on this episode. And as well to our sponsors in Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Elite Prospects, Goaltenders, Terrico, and Movement Fitness and Performance for sponsoring another edition of this show. We're going to be back next week for a new year in 2026. Very excited for that. Until then, everybody, I've been your host, Graham the G Show Forsyth, for one final time in 2025, giving you the peace out and waving so long. We have 2 more podcast episodes coming out today, an MMJHL podcast coming out right away, as well as a Winnipeg High School Hockey League podcast, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, hope you have a wonderful New Year's Eve. Celebrate it safely, but also celebrated having a lot of fun tonight. And yeah, hoping you all the best. We'll see you in 2026, everybody. Take care.